Morning, everybody, and welcome to the Payments Leaders Show. I'm your host today, Adrian Evans, and this is where I have a fireside chat with handpicked leaders from the payments industry. They share how they lead their people, how they create winning teams that are human-centric, yet they create a culture where opportunities are embraced first before we actually address and meet challenges. As we know, one of the greatest challenges in this innovative space is how to build a culture that enables people to thrive and for them to reach their potential, yet realizing high performance within the company. One of the most accomplished people I've seen is Amnah Ajmal. And Amnah has led digital and cultural transformations in consumer banking and the payments industry. By innovating across the consumer experience across several different markets. I'm not sure there's any markets she hasn't covered. So it's been Europe, Middle East, Asia, North America, and award-winning, twice voted top 25 women in financial technology across the world and top 10 in America. She is currently leading key segments at MasterCard across the Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, including fintechs, merchants, as well as digital partners, enablers, and governments. She focuses on aligning her team to customer need and leading with empathy. She is not just one of the most curious people I know, she's an exceptional listener, authentic relationship builder, and thoroughly decent human being. So thank you very much indeed for taking your time out and welcome.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for the kind introduction. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Really thrilled to have you on board today, and been looking forward to this one. So first of all, I wonder if we could start with, I wonder if you could share with us some of the choices you've made in your career.
Sure. So I would start with the fact that my choices in career were more led by my heart and intuition than by logic. So, for example, when I moved from Dubai to Egypt, I mean, most people move the other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
But I went to Egypt because I thought it's a great learning opportunity and it's a very, very different, massive country. And there's a lot more that I would learn than an evolved market like UAE. I also left Singapore for Malaysia, and most people do the move the other way around from Malaysia to Singapore. Again, I was at the headquarters in a global great role, but I found Malaysia very fascinating with three different cultures, three different religions. I mean, amazing, diverse group of people. So I shifted. I also left London for Poland, which most people don't do. A lot of Polish people want to come to London, and London was the headquarters for the city.
There's a trend here.
So, yes. So I think most of the time I looked at any opportunity that came across my way as going out of my comfort zone, reinventing myself, learning something new and different. And of course, it comes with a set of challenges because each new country, and I changed it 12 times that you go into, you have to, and especially if you don't speak the language, you need to set up yourself, you need to have a place, you need to culturally resonate yourself. And it's hard at times, but I think it made me the leader who I am because those experiences were just so rich. Those people were so inspiring that they made me the leader who I am. Um, and then even shifting the industry when I went from credit cards to retail and then from retail to payments, but I was still dealing with banks. And now when I'm in payments and technology, but I deal with everybody who's not a bank. So I think I always had a focus on reinventing myself and being out of my comfort zone. And I think that you have that because you're curious, you want to get to know more, you want to do more, and you believe, you're humble enough to believe that you don't know it all. Still, there's so much to learn. So I think most of my career choices may be considered illogical by a lot of people, but that was the underlying theme that I was following in my career.
Wow, that's truly fascinating because there's a bit of a trend there with all of you going the opposite direction. Just if we could just segue a little there, it's obviously you were seeking to reinvent yourself and it was leading with curiosity, but that's quite unusual. I wonder where does that come from? Where does that come from within you? You said you led with your heart more than logic. I'm just fascinated to hear a little bit more about that.
So maybe going back to my background a little bit would help you understand it. So I was born in Pakistan in a very in a wealthy but a very traditional family. So my mom was a mom at the age of 17. I had a grandma in her 30s. So in my family, no woman had ever worked. Only men In fact, men also didn't work. They inherited a lot of wealth. So there was not a concept of having a career, let alone having an international career. So when at the age of 18, I had this dream and vision for myself that, oh, I want to travel in so many countries, I want to live there, but not by being married to a man, but being known for my own intellectual acumen and because of who I am. I think, and that was primarily because of curiosity. I mean, what's out there in the world? What all I can do, what all I can achieve, what all I can experience. And of course, it was considered like a very alien thought in the family where I came from, right? And it gave me a courage and a perseverance to pick up that battle and to have the choices that I wanted to make. And I had to design a life that I wanted. Um, and for that, of course, I paid a lot of, I would say, a heavy price to do that, and being the first one in my family to ever do that. But I think that was rooted in the curiosity that I had to see the world, to experience it, um, to put myself out there and understand, could I have an identity of my own rather than being associated by men in my life, be it the father, the husband, or the brother or the son. And I think that's what led my journey. So I always had this curiosity, this courage and perseverance in me, because if I had given up, my journey lasted from the age of 18 till 23 when I left my house and country for good. So maybe you're young at that time and you also do things which later on you're like, oh, that was crazy. But, I had that in me, my desire to have that vision of my life coming to life was just so strong that whatever showstopper came in my way, I was able to find a way around it. And I think that's what also leadership is about, because everything is not hunky dory rosy. And when there are showstoppers, you need to have that optimism and that vision and that curiosity to keep on finding a new path to move forward.
Wow. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's an incredible story.
Thank you.
Sorry, I could go on to lots of segments down there, but I think we'll save that for another day. You're responsible for end-to-end P&L at Mastercard now for the new segment, as you say, within the region. But you've done a various number of senior product roles in your time and throughout your career. How does empathy play a key role in you creating innovative solutions?
So I very passionately believe that empathy is the foundation of innovation. If you go back and just look at examples around us, right? Steve Jobs innovated iPod because he was frustrated that he could not carry his library of music around. Uber was founded on a cold night because the founders were frustrated that they could not find a car, because those days you would stand on a street and just keep on waving your hand. Zoom was born because the founder who had a long distance relationship, the only way to meet his partner was to take a train, right? So if you look at most of the innovations, they are born out of someone's frustration of not being able to do something. But if you peel this a little bit more, it's also the empathy to understand how many more people would be experiencing the same frustration, right? So if you look at design thinking, which I really believe is the crux of developing new product and solution, at its heart, it's about empathy. To really understand the problem that we are trying to solve, we need to have an empathetic view of the people who are actually experiencing that problem. Because if you don't have that, you can't solve for it. So I truly believe that whatever product or solution we are designing, putting ourselves in customers' shoes and really understanding about the pain or the lack of experience, which is not letting them to do something. I give a very small example because for me, product is about simplifying life or giving consumer choices. At times, it also includes problems that really are not a problem. I go back to my old days of BlackBerry. It was pretty painful for thumbs. And I remember I was working a lot. And at one point in time, I had a thumb problem. Then I went to the doctor and he said to me, it's because you use BlackBerry a lot, right? But it's not that anybody ever complained about it, right? I mean, we're not complaining about it. But yet, when the touchscreen iPhone, smartphone era started, it was taken everybody by storm that, oh, it could be so easy, right? But they solved a pain point that even consumer didn't know that was a pain point.
Yeah, fascinating.
So I think that understanding based on empathy your consumers is the crux of innovation.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's again, I love that unique perspective you have on how you've peeled those layers back, and empathy leads to being able to do something at scale, doesn't it? Because
Yep.
if you Richard Branson's another example, he got frustrated because he couldn't get that flight, and then he grabbed 100 other people who are also frustrated. So it's a great way of looking at it. You know, I've observed that you're a lead again who's committed to lead with curiosity. Can you tell us where that comes from? Because it seems very deep in you, that your curiosity and how you lead. And what do you believe also is the connection between curiosity and innovation?
Sure. So I think in today's world, it's more important than 5, 7 years back. Because, for example, in my role, I have to keep myself up to date on a lot of technology and a lot of segments. It's impossible. It's impossible that I would be an expert in artificial intelligence plus metaverse plus blockchain, right? So, and there's so much happening in each of these independent technologies, let alone the connections between them, right? So I think curiosity, before you become curious or you try to be curious, you have to be humble enough to admit that you don't know everything and there's so much there for you to know. Okay. And I think that's a starting point, and it has a great impact on leadership when I recruit people who are stronger than me, who are better than me, who are subject matter expert, from whom I'm going to learn, and that's very, very important. That is what makes you curious, because when you interact with these people, who explain you the depth of these technologies. It's fascinating that so much you did not know. But it all starts with humility, and only then you can actually be curious. Because if your starting point is that I know it all and I have all the answers and I can lead teams and I can build businesses, and then that's a wrong starting point in today's world, I believe. So I think that's one thing. Second, when I became a parent, I think I truly understood the meaning of curiosity, because um, the fact that if you look at children and they don't have any filter,
Yeah.
and every question is like, why not, why not, and I read somewhere that the most common word that parents use for their kids in the first 9 years is no. you know and it's fascinating because I think kids want to experiment, they want to do new things. You have to tape your electric sockets because that's where the finger is going to go. You have to make sure that your oven cannot be switched on at that height, and I think it's all based on curiosity, and I think that's what makes them great and fascinating, because they're so curious about the world, right? So I think the best way to learn curiosity is really looking at children.
That brings a funny story. We live in an old Victorian house, and we got floorboards they did have holes in the gaps. And my daughter used to get our credit cards and she'd post them down there because she thought it was fun. And of course, we were left without any credit cards at one point because they were all buried under the house. But she of course was having a great time. She was having a wonderful time, and she locked herself in the car because she wanted to see how it worked. And of course,
Yeah, absolutely.
we were only smiling about it the other day. Yeah. But no, I think that's incredible. That just really fascinating, because there's a balance there with leadership, isn't it? Because you need to show a strength and you need to lead a direction and people to create followership. So how do you combine that balance and that tightrope between being a strong leader, yet one who displays humility? How do you do that?
So I strongly believe that, and it was a large part of my career, I was not doing that. That if you show your vulnerable side, and this is what I believe probably for the first 8 years of my career, that if I would show my vulnerable side, I'm not going to be perceived as a strong leader, right? Even my personal story that I'm so confident and comfortable now sharing it, I wasn't for the first 8 years, right? And I think it's not easy to be comfortable with your vulnerabilities, that you don't know it all, that was your personal story, that was your crucible. It's very hard. And the moment I opened up, I just realized people have so much more respect for you. You form such deep, true connections. And why would my team follow me? Because I show them a vision, you know? And then we together when everybody has bought into that vision, we together create a path to get to that vision. But it's very clear to each individual who's contributing to this journey at what's the end goal that they're trying to achieve. And in the journey, there would be many showstoppers. So I'm always there to help them to get over that hurdle. Okay, so it's not just the leader who is showing you a bright, shiny picture. This is where, in the end, we need to go to. But it's also the leader who actually is going to support you when you fall down. It's there to help you stand up and, just go towards the goal once again. And I think if people know the end vision that they're collectively trying to achieve, and they know that there is a leader there who's going to help them in getting there in case there are obstacles, you have that followership. You connect with people at a very, very deep level. I think second most important thing is to treat people like people. I invest a lot of my time in getting to know people as people, completely disconnected from the business. And I think that helps you in establishing deep connections, which are based on purely trust and respect as an individual to individual, rather than the titles that you hold.
Yeah, there's a wonderful saying. Another leader I know, he says about connecting beyond task actually enables the task to go faster. And even though it seems contradictory, they're a living example of that. And it sounds it very much with yourself. So we share a passion for reducing and ultimately surpassing the gender opportunity gap within careers, and also the pay gap. I wonder if you could share your lens on that, because just quickly for me, the Equal Pay Act in the UK, I wasn't born, it was just before I was born that it came to the UK. And I'm in my 5th decade now, and we still have a huge pay gap across many, many places. So, for me, legally it hasn't worked, and politically it hasn't worked. So there must be another solution out there. So I'd love to know your lens on those two things.
Sure. So I think there are two portions to it. One is, of course, there's a gender gap in a lot of industries that organizations are trying to fill. And I think followed by that, if you have the right gender representation, or even if you don't, wherever the representation is, it's the pay gap, right? I think, and maybe my point of view changed once I had a daughter, that it's a two-way street, right? I see a lot of organizations who are doing a lot now on both fronts. But I also mentor a lot of women, and I think self-belief, confidence is something that we really need to focus on in our upcoming women leaders. In my career till date, and I got into senior leadership roles at the age of 27 when I was moving to Poland to manage a team of 300 people. I can tell you, whenever I have offered a promotion to a man, I've never received no as an answer. Whenever I offer a promotion to a woman, it's always some doubts and questions whether they can do it or not, right? So I think it's a fundamental self-belief and confidence challenge that we have. And it's very, very important for us as leaders to address that.
Yep.
So when I talk to women and say that, okay, you want that job, go ask for it. But no, somebody's already in it. That's not your problem. You want that job, you go and ask for it. You give the reasons as to why you're a great fit for that job, right? When it comes to financials, you ask the salary that you think you deserve for doing that job. No, but that grade doesn't have that does not matter. You're asking for your truth. And it's such a hard conversation, because most women would be like, oh no, I mean, how can I do that? And I think it doesn't matter, because I worked in so many cultures and I come from a very different culture, that it's somehow deep rooted in our society, and I'll give you a small example. So forget about organization and corporations. I was organizing my daughter's 4th birthday party, and I asked the party organizers to send me some themes that they have, right? So they sent me 2 themes. One was for girl, one was for boys, right? So girl was like Hello Kitty, a princess, and some kind of stuff, and boys was like Fast and Furious, cars, Spider-Man, Superman, right? So whatever, I showed my daughter both lists, right, without saying what the gender is, and she's like, I don't like any of them. This is a 4-year-old. I'm like, so what do you want for your birthday? And she's like, oh, I want a planet theme because I want to save the planet. Now, first of all, I don't know how would she save the planet by having a planet theme birthday party, but that was her thought. But it also made me realize that why till now, in today's time, you have gender-based birthday parties. What are you telling the kids? That the cars and the fastness and the furiousness and the boldness is for the boys, and being a sweet princess and a kitty is for girls, right? So, I mean, how many industries can you change? Now, I see that some of the brands have taken a call that they won't not be a gender segregation in the shops and all, but it's a long, long way to go, you know? So, yes, corporations and organizations and governments can do some, but I think we have a huge responsibility first to bring the next generation in a different way in our personal roles. Secondly, even in our professional roles, I talked to some people in my company who are joining as interns, fresh graduates. Um, and at times they're fascinated by how I made these choices. But I tell them all the time, it starts with your self belief. It starts with the optimism in you. I think there's this quote about Charlie Chaplin that you never see a rainbow looking down, right? So if you have that belief and optimism in yourself and be humble at the same time, nobody ever applying for a job is, let's say if a job has 5 criteria, they're all 5 they can do. Nobody can. But if there are 3 that you're super confident about, go and talk about it and raise your hand and ask for it, right? And I think that's where we have a lot of work to do. So yes, I think corporations are going a long way, governments are going a long way, but I feel if also women at work start to think differently, especially the ones who are joining the force now are going to be setting the bar for the others to come, it's going to make a huge difference.
Wonderful. No, I was smiling all the way through that because I agree with everything you've said, and I experience it. So of course I've been a career coach and a headhunter before that for the last 3 decades, and we have a course called Impactful Negotiation for Women. So myself and a partner Lisa rerun that, and we see that every time when we do live role plays. We see the behaviours you've just described each and every time from women. And it's not stereotyping. The data is there. It's interesting talking about children. I've now got a 17-year-old daughter, and she was asked to do a job over the summer, and she was uniquely qualified to do that. And before she accepted it, I said, she got a father who's a career coach. I said, what salary would you ask for? And she said, oh, well, they're offering this thing. I said, that's not my question. I said, you're on a short list of 1. You're uniquely placed. You've got an amazing connection with children. You're on a short list of 1. And she said, oh, I couldn't possibly ask for that, which was nearly double what they were offering. I said, well, let's just see. And she said, well, you're comfortable with these difficult conversations. I'm like, what have you got to lose? Imagine if they say no, but you can have this instead. And she ended up getting a lot more than they were initially offering. And again, I see it as a responsibility for me to give her that optimism and self-belief, but also other women and step into that. You say whenever they look at a job description, you see a lot of women who'll do that, go, yeah, but I haven't got this, and this.
Yes.
And you're like, well, if you had all of that, it would be a lateral move. So why would you take a lateral move? So now I think we could talk about this a lot. Like it'd be great actually to carry this conversation on because we're both very passionate about it.
Also, why would you focus on what you don't have and instead focus on what you have and amplify that? Even in performance evaluation, when you're being told these are your great areas, right? These are the areas you work on. After performance evaluation person walks out and only for talking about in mind, it's only the thing that you have to work upon. But you can amplify your strengths as opposed to completely focusing just on your areas of improvement, And to your point, if somebody was like fulfilling all the criteria of the roles, you won't be looking for people.
There's no growth for you. There's no personal growth.
Absolutely.
So yeah. I think that brings us really nicely there. It's about self-belief. I also think it's about sort of showing up as you. And when you show up as you and know that's good enough, unfortunately, it took me a long time to get to that sort of point. And there's a lovely saying which says, you can't be anybody else. Everyone else is taken. And it's sort of true. So I love this about you there, but so who are the people who've had most influence on you becoming the authentic leader you are today, which enables you to show up as you?
So it would be hard for me to mention one. I would say I myself lacked the self-belief and the optimism that I talk about today. So when I was 27 years old, I remember one of my bosses in London had gone to Poland and he came back and he asked me to come to my office. And I came to his office and he was on his laptop and he's like, you want to be the card set of Poland? And it was the largest business of city at that point in time. And I knew that people get that job with like 10, 15 years of experience at least. So they're usually in their late 30s or early 40s when they get that job. And I'm like here in my 20s with 4 years of experience. So I said to him, like, no, why would anybody hire me for that job? I don't have the experience. I've never managed a team more than 2 people. This is like managing and leading 300 people. And he said, why would anybody give me that job? And he's like, just go and think about it. So I came back, I sat at my desk, and interestingly, there was a Polish person sitting next to me. And I told him about it, and he's like, well, there's no point in even you going for an interview because you would never be selected because this job is always requiring 15 years of experience. You're just 4 years in banking. Um, and he said, everybody over there is a Polish and you don't even speak the language, right? So how can you lead people and you don't even speak the language? And it requires a regulatory interface. How can you talk to the regulator without knowing the language? So I went back to my boss's room and I said, no, I don't think so. I'll go for it. And he's like, why? And I said to him, well, I think first of all, I won't get the job. And even if I get it, I'll be fired. And and it's an American company, so you're not supposed to ask the age. And he's like, okay, I know I'm asking a wrong question, but tell me, how old are you? And I'm like 27. And he's like, so what if you're fired at the age of 27? And he's like, just go for it. And I came back and I remember I sat at my desk and I said to this person, and I said, I'm going to go for it. And he's like, why? I said, I'm 27. So what, even if I get fired, you know? And I'm sorry, I think I need to take the blind down because it's too much of sunlight on my face.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, so that person, he doesn't know. And I told him later the impact he had on me.
Wow.
Because that very moment, it just like I was reborn as a person. And, I went into the interviews with a lot of confidence and I was selected for the job. Not only I was selected for the job, in 1 year, I was promoted in 1 year, So if he had not had that conversation with me and he would have said, okay, you're not comfortable for it, it's fine, don't go for it, right? But that moment when he said, what do you have to lose, to your earlier point? I mean, what is there to lose? You'll be fired at the age of 27? Big deal. You'll find another job. So like this, there are a lot of moments. And then I was reporting into a woman boss. And when they were promoting me after a year, I said, no, I'm just a year in this role. I can't be going to another big role because I'm just a year. I just landed in this country. And she's like, no, you're applying for the job. You're going to be interviewed. And I said, but I'm just a year. I landed in this country. I have so much more to do. And she's like, you would continue that more to do because this is going to be a subset because I was being promoted in the same line from cards getting into consumer assets. So, it's almost like a lot of people had an impact, but these two I would remember because I think those conversations were so impactful and powerful.
Wow. They sound, again, thank you for sharing that story. That's really deep. It sounds to me like they were catalyzing, and then did that have a multiplied effect? So the next time after
yes.
that, and he's like, could I go for that job? And he was like, well, actually, do you know what? Well, I'm going to lead with a yes and see where it goes.
Not only that, I think it made me a different leader because, for example, there was a lady in Poland who was selling cosmetics, right? And I told her I don't speak the language. I was in a shopping mall. And then she's like, okay, I speak English. And she tried to convince me. And I came back, I was like, oh my God, she's such a brilliant salesperson. I gave her my business card. I moved her from cosmetics into banking. And, initially people were like, my HR partner was like, I mean, selling cosmetics is very different from banking products. I'm like, no, she's such an agile person. She's such a quick learner. She's so much hired. And in 1 year, there were so many people who wanted to hire her. Right. So I think it introduced a new risk taking in terms of people into me as a leader, because I was like, it's not really about the experience that you have, because I myself didn't have it, but it's about how agile you are, how curious you are. What is your drive and passion that you have to achieve your goals, so it also made me a different leader as to how I treat people. I don't box them into years of experience and into what you have done in the past. Anyways, in today's time, what you've done in the past has no relevance to what you can do in the future. I studied computer engineering and my languages were Pascal and COBOL. I mean, who uses them today? The green screen and all. It's irrelevant what I studied. And if you want to post a job, artificial intelligence, 20 years of experience, there would be 0 applicants.
Nobody's got it.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I got a very quick story. I'm smiling because I once moved a lady from cosmetics in marketing to technology, but it was her attitude. She turned up and she had to get a taxi from the train station to the office of this technology company. You wouldn't believe it, but she got the taxi with 3 enterprise salespeople sharing the same car. And of course, Herbie and her, she interviewed them. And this guy was one of them was the ultimately big line manager. So she grilled it. And he said, oh, with the go-to-market, they're really not good with the collateral on this, and this. And so she went into the interview and she basically said, this is how I'll solve the problem for the enterprise salespeople. And they were like, oh my God, that's exactly what the line manager's saying. But what was hysterical was, of course, she was what I call my wild card. She was on the shortlist, but they said, we really don't think she's very good. Of course, she then went on and had a great career. Then people were like, oh, could we hire her in channel marketing over here? So sorry, there was a very similar parallel. And again, that's about mindset, though. That's about mindset and possibility and, well, customer empathy. That does start with customer empathy. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So what do you wish you knew? Really excited for this question. What do you wish you knew? And you'd be happy, this is the 21-year-old conversation. What would you be saying to your 21-year-old self or your 27-year-old self?
So I think I've really lived a life of no regrets. Like whatever was the intuition or the feeling that I should do, I went for it. But I think in the beginning, because the price that I paid to have a career was so high, that I was just so hell bent upon making sure that I am successful, that I compromised a lot on not only friendships and family, but also on my own health. So it sounds crazy, but I turned up to work on a wheelchair. When I was living in Cairo, I had asthma, so I used to have this oxygen tank, and I got a wake up call when I was diagnosed with IBS in Poland, and I had to completely change my diet, my food, my lifestyle. I had to start exercising. And I didn't take any holidays for the 8 years of my career. I was literally working 18 hours a day. And I think that wake up call just taught me, and I wish I knew that earlier, was that your well being is the most important thing. Corporations would continue to work, business would continue. And the most important thing is your well being. You have to prioritize that. And I think I did not prioritize it for a long time in my career. And then one day I had to. And I think this is extremely important.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is sort of where I normally sort of summarize what we've sort of heard today into 3 or 4 things. I'm not quite sure I'm going to summarize into 3 or 4 because there's been so many pearls of wisdom and nuggets in there. Is there anything else you'd like to say before? Actually, can I just do that? I just think what I've heard today is the bravery and unfortunately sometimes the cost there of reinventing yourself, but actually designing your own life and actually following a dream. And actually, I really felt as well, you just embrace those obstacles as almost inevitable, because they are. There's no straight line to success. I was also hearing about the tightrope between being a strong leader, but by bringing a level of humility actually brings a vulnerability, which means people are more drawn to you, and it actually creates fellowship.
Yeah.
And then obviously when we discussed about the gender pay gap as well as the opportunity gap, actually it's a two-way street. So governments can, or corporations can, etc. But the underlying self-belief and actually stepping into the unknown and actually sort of working it out along the way is actually responsibility of all of us and not just women as well. And also, I think the other piece then about leading with curiosity, it seems remarkable where curiosity has taken you on very different paths. It's almost if the waves were going this way and you were going the other on 3 occasions. But it sounds like a real unlocker for you was that time at Citibank where you were asked to go for it, and almost you had the freedom to say it doesn't work out, 27, I'm going to get another job. But actually, I think the thing that's come across really strongly for me, and has been a theme today, it's obvious you live your life fully by not having regrets, and actually just being a bit kinder to yourself and managing your own health is important, but no regrets as you move forward.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd add to that summary or you'd like to comment on?
No, it's perfect. Yes. I think courage perseverance, and optimism combined with curiosity are five ingredients which can enable any vision that you have for your life, for your business, anything.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, look, I felt we could have talked and talked and talked, but thank you so much for taking your time out. I know how busy your schedule is, and I'd love to have you back on the show sometime. But thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you so much, Edwin. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.